Welcome to Telltale Books. I'm Greg, and if you haven't seen the previous episode that I did, I am going through the entire issue of Asimov's science fiction for April and May 2012. And if you haven't been following, if you're new to the channel, what happened is I wanted to read the May-June 2025 issue entirely and report on it, but there were stories in there that were related to stories that have been published in previous issues. So I wanted to go backwards and read those entire issues, but there were stories in those issues that were part of a series where the earlier stories were in previous issues, and it's kept kind of bouncing me around in the past. I'm currently at 2012, the April-May 2012 issue, which will work me to I believe the July-August 2017 issue, which is going to bounce me back again, way back, with three kind of longish series. So it may take me a very long time to get to the May-June 2025 issue, but I'm having a blast. I'm really enjoying this. I'm discovering some terrific fiction that I've never read before, because I really wasn't reading anything in 2012, and I wasn't subscribing to the magazines at that time, and so I never read these stories. Never knew these stories existed. Some of the authors in this issue I wasn't familiar with. I was familiar with James Patrick Kelly, though, because I had read some of his stories way back in the early 1980s and enjoyed them. So in coming back to in the connection that brought me back to the April-May 2012 issue was the Sandra McDonald story. But the lead story here, The Last Judgment, is the sequel to a story titled Men Are Trouble, which was in a 2004 issue of Asimov's, which I recently did go through and report on everything in that one. And there were another number of stories that I had to break out because they were either Nebula finalists or they were authors that I was doing a deep dive on. So I broke out those stories. And I'm doing that again with this one. The Last Judgment I'm breaking out because it's part of this series that I'm reading everything by. Only 2 stories, though. And this is the second story. And it's number 87 in James Patrick Kelly's bibliography that I've created on my website, which may or may not be accurate, but I've got it at number 87. So he had written a lot of work already at this time, and he is still writing today. This story is a novella, so it's not a short. It's shorter than a novel, but it's not really a short work. It's a pretty sizable work. It's one you can really sink your teeth into. And Men Are Trouble was in the June 2004 issue of Asimov's. Okay, and both stories center on a character named P.I. Hardaway. So she's back in this story. You're in a future world where aliens came to Earth and wiped out all the men. They killed them by simply making them disappear, kind of like Gazoo. They just went and gone, and no more men in the world. It's all women in the world. So P.I. Hardaway is a private investigator, and people hire her to try and find people. In this one, she's hired for another missing person case. The first story was also a missing person case. The investigation leads her to a doctor who is performing advanced gender reassignment surgery, intending to recreate men. Okay, the aliens are called the Devils because they kind of look like devils. The brilliant J.K. Potter illustration of this issue is for The Last Judgment, and that's the devil. That's one of the robot servants that the devils give to people, and that is Hardaway. And I love that illustration. I love J.K. Potter's work. Bring him back. So this scientist has been trying to recreate man, and the devils have been kind of leaving him alone. Why? Because the devils realized they made a mistake in disappearing all the men. This is a very enjoyable story, and it solves most of the problems of that I had with Men Are Trouble. The fact that there's so many unanswered questions. There's a little more answers to this story, a little more depth to the world, and more knowledge about what's going on. But there's still a couple things that are unanswered, namely, why did the aliens do it in the first place? And why did they do it so brashly without thinking things through? If now they're looking at the situation going, oh, crap, we made a mistake. Those are faults of both stories that I wish Kelly would have gone a little further and addressed, but he didn't. And so that weakens the stories, but nevertheless, it's a very enjoyable story. And like I say, most of the other questions that I had with the first story, Men Are Trouble, are cleared up here. So I feel The Last Judgment is actually the stronger story, even though this one didn't receive any, this one was not a Hugo or Nebula finalist. Men Are Trouble was a Nebula finalist. This one, I feel, deserved to be a Nebula finalist more than Men Are Trouble did. I did like the story. I do recommend the story despite certain reservations, despite certain things that I think are not the best, that it could have been a stronger story than it was. Even so, I think it's worth reading. If you can find this issue of Asimov's, or if I forget, I did look it up on ISFDB. I forget though if it's in any other books, collections, or whatever. It's probably in a collection of short stories by James Patrick Kelly. I don't think there's a book just dedicated to the P.I. Hardaway stories, because there's only two, but I mean the two together, it would still be kind of a short book, but it would work. It could work, especially if somehow you made it a fix-up, blending the stories in together to make one story. But at any rate, I think it's worth looking this story up and reading it. This is a good story. So have you read The Last Judgment or Men Are Trouble, or have any insights into James Patrick Kelly? Because I don't know a whole heck of a lot about him. If you know things, leave it in the comments. I would love to hear it. I'm sure everybody else watching this video would love to hear your comments, any insights you may have, any opinions you may have, thoughts you may have about the story. And I hope you'll come back. I'm going to continue my journey with Asimov's. I've got 2 more breakout stories from this issue to cover, and then I'm going to go and cover the latest issue of Apex magazine, and then I'll get back on track. But I'll get back on track by going to some stories that are part of series that I'm covering here, but they weren't published in Asimov's. And I'm going to be doing those, and then I'm going to be getting into a whole bunch more issues of Asimov's, as well as getting into a couple of really big series, one of which I've already covered a bit, the Diving Universe series by Kristen Catherine Rush. I read the very first story of it. I read her most recent story, which was published in Asimov's earlier this year, I believe, and loved them both. I've been wanting to go back and go through her entire diving universe series. And I think I'm going to do that because one of the magazines I'm going to run into in this project has another diving universe story in it. So I'm going to go back and read them all. And there's another story by Alan M. Steele that I'm going to run into, which is part of a whole series about Coyote. And that's a series of novels and short stories. Most of the short works were published in the magazines. The novels, the first novel is a fix-up of a bunch of stories that were all published in Asimov's. I'm going to be going back and doing all of that. The very first story of that series, I bought the issue of Asimov's that has that in, and it's in the mail on its way to me right now. So I'm going to be going through that entire series. Hopefully it's a good one. It's a space opera. Hopefully I'll like it. We'll see. I've only read, I think, one story by one or two stories by Alan Steele, and they were good. So far haven't blown me away, but let's see about Coyote. Maybe that'll blow me away. So come on back for more Asimovs, more of all these different series, more of other magazines, and everything else we do here on Telltale Books. And I hope you'll be seeing me. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, don't forget that.